At first, it was subtle. Little things that didn't quite add up. Her boyfriend had always had a steady job, one she assumed kept him busy and out of trouble during the day. But over time, she noticed he was texting her later in the mornings, claiming long hours. Yet his phone's location always showed him at home. Something felt off, but she told herself it could just be a phase. Maybe the project he mentioned really did require long hours. Maybe he was stressed. Whenever she asked for details, he would weave a story about an important project he and his co-workers were working on, seeking financial sponsors, something exciting that was almost starting. He spoke with confidence, even charm, painting a picture that made it easy to believe him. She wanted to trust him, she really did. After all, this was someone she loved and shared her life with. But over time, the reassurances began to feel hollow. The project was always just about to start, yet never seemed to progress. Then came the little inconsistencies that gnawed at her. The texts that contradicted what he had said earlier. The times she expected him to be at meetings or work events that never happened. The excuses that always seemed rehearsed, the stories that didn't quite match. Even when she tried to ignore it, the doubt lingered like a shadow over their relationship. It started as a quiet sense of unease, almost imperceptible. But as the weeks turned into months, and the months into nearly a year, that unease grew heavier. Every vague explanation, every disappearing location ping, every delayed or avoided conversation felt like another small crack in the foundation of trust. She could feel it, the tension building, the suspicion mounting, but she didn't yet know the full extent of what he had been hiding. And yet, despite it all, she kept giving him the benefit of the doubt. Love can do that. It makes you hope, rationalize, and sometimes blind yourself to reality. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. That nagging sense of doubt was the first warning, the quiet alarm that would eventually lead to a confrontation that neither of them could ignore. Nearly a year went by, and the uncertainty only grew. Every time she asked about the so-called project, he would give another vague update. "It's almost starting," he'd say, or "We're just waiting on a sponsor." She wanted to believe him, she really did, but the consistency of the lies was impossible to ignore. He even stopped sharing his location, something that had once been routine. That small change made her heart race every time she tried to check where he was. She didn't want to be controlling, but it was hard not to feel betrayed when everything he said seemed carefully scripted. The tension in the relationship was building, slowly but relentlessly. Each unanswered question, each avoided conversation, added another layer of doubt. She began to notice patterns in his behavior. The enthusiasm he once had for plans seemed forced. The energy he put into daily life felt like a performance. Even when he smiled, there was a subtle distance that couldn't be ignored. It wasn't just about whether he had a job, it was the realization that he was hiding something major, something that should have been shared openly in a trusting relationship. Emotionally, it was exhausting. She oscillated between hope and suspicion, imagining every possible scenario in her head. Maybe he really was working on a project. Maybe there was a good reason he couldn't be open. But rationalizations only got her so far. The nagging doubt refused to disappear, growing louder with each passing month. And as the months stretched on, the quiet unease transformed into a pressing need for answers. She could no longer ignore the signs, the tension, the lies, the secrecy. It all demanded a confrontation. The question that had been quietly simmering for almost a year would finally come to the surface. Had he really been working all this time, or had she been living with a lie? The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose not just the truth about his employment, but the deeper cracks in trust and communication that had been silently growing between them. After nearly a year of lies, she finally confronted him. The conversation didn't start calmly. It started with a question that had been building inside her for months. "Do you actually have a job, or have you been lying to me?" His reaction shocked her. Instead of being honest, he became defensive and angry. He said she couldn't understand because she had a fixed salary job and that his work as a tradesman was different. The calm trust she had once felt in their relationship shattered in an instant. Words that were meant to explain only deepened the divide, turning a long, simmering tension into a full-blown argument. It wasn't about money, she could support herself, but about the principle of honesty. She felt betrayed, not by the fact that he wasn't working, but by the fact that he had hidden the truth for months, stringing her along with excuses and vague promises. Every lie, every excuse, every evasive answer she had patiently endured suddenly made sense. It was a pattern she could no longer ignore. The confrontation escalated quickly. He raised his voice, she held her ground, and the argument became a tense standoff between frustration and disappointment. She wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for transparency. And yet, he framed her concern as criticism, twisting the situation to make her feel unreasonable. In that moment, the reality became undeniable. The person she thought she knew, the partner she had trusted, had been hiding a significant part of his life. Months of subtle lies, carefully curated stories, and avoided questions had finally come to light, leaving a mix of shock, hurt, and disbelief. But even as the argument ended, the bigger questions remained. Could trust ever be rebuilt? Was this relationship founded on honesty, or had it been quietly eroding for nearly a year? And most importantly, what should she do next? After the confrontation, she turned to Reddit's popular Am I the A-ya forum for perspective, unsure if she was overreacting or justified. The responses were overwhelmingly clear. She was right to be upset. Comment after comment reinforced the same idea. Honesty is the foundation of any relationship, and hiding something as significant as employment for months, even a year, is a serious breach of trust. One user wrote, NTA, he lied to your face for months. Why are you still with someone who treats you that way? Another added, he didn't come clean until confronted and then tried to make you the, For expecting honesty, that's unacceptable. The consensus was unmistakable. Transparency isn't optional, it's essential. The Reddit feedback wasn't just about judgment, it highlighted a bigger problem. Losing a job can happen to anyone, but the real issue was the deception. Hiding it for nearly a year showed a lack of respect and trust, which can quietly erode the foundation of a relationship over time. Commenters emphasized that relationships rely on communication, and when someone chooses secrecy over openness, it signals a serious imbalance in accountability and commitment. Reading these perspectives, she realized that her feelings of betrayal weren't overblown. They were a natural response to repeated dishonesty. It wasn't about her expectations being too high. It was about basic human decency and respect. She could support herself financially, but she couldn't support being lied to emotionally. This section of her story underscores an important lesson for anyone watching. Trust isn't just about being together. It's about being truthful, even when the truth is uncomfortable. The deception might have started small, but over time it compounded, showing how secrecy can quietly corrode even seemingly stable relationships. And as she read the comments, the question lingered. How do you rebuild trust when someone hides something so significant for so long? Could honesty ever fully restore the balance, or had the damage already been done? Even after reading all the advice and validation from the Reddit community, the emotional weight of the situation didn't ease immediately. She knew she could support herself financially, but the betrayal cut deeper than money ever could. It wasn't about what he was earning, or even whether he had a job. It was about the repeated secrecy, the feeling of being manipulated, and the trust that had quietly eroded over nearly a year. She reflected on all the subtle signs she had noticed along the way. The late-morning texts, the missing location updates, the vague stories about projects that never materialized. Each of those small moments now felt like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't fully understood until the confrontation. It wasn't just a single lie. It was a pattern that spoke volumes about honesty, respect, and communication in a relationship. The emotional impact was intense. She felt anger, frustration, disappointment, and sadness all at once. She questioned whether this was a temporary lapse in judgment or a deeper character issue. Could someone hide something for so long and expect the relationship to continue as if nothing happened? Could trust ever be rebuilt after months of deception? These questions weighed heavily on her, showing that even when love and care are present, honesty cannot be optional. Yet, amidst the confusion and hurt, she also found clarity. The situation reminded her of a fundamental truth about relationships. Transparency and respect form the foundation, and without them, even the strongest feelings can be undermined. Financial independence gave her freedom, but emotional independence gave her perspective. She could see clearly now that staying in a relationship where honesty is compromised isn't about convenience. It's about long-term well-being and self-respect. By reflecting on her experience, she realized that confrontation wasn't an overreaction. It was a necessary act of self-preservation. It wasn't about punishing her partner. It was about seeking clarity, understanding, and accountability. And as she processed these emotions, one question became unavoidable. How much deception is too much? And at what point does forgiveness cross the line into compromising your own integrity? After months of uncertainty and reflection, she knew she had to make a choice, not just about the relationship, but about her own peace of mind. She realized that honesty isn't negotiable. Trust can't be patched up with excuses or vague promises. It has to be earned, and it has to be consistent. Hiding something as significant as employment for nearly a year had broken that consistency, leaving her questioning not only his reliability, but the foundation of the entire relationship. She began to focus on what she could control: her own life, her own values, and her own boundaries. Financial independence allowed her to make decisions freely, but emotional clarity gave her direction. She didn't need to stay in a situation where she constantly doubted what was real and what was fabricated. Respecting herself meant acknowledging that repeated lies, no matter how small or seemingly harmless, are serious breaches of trust. This was also a lesson in perspective. Losing trust in a partner doesn't just impact the present, it reshapes how you see the future. Every plan, every shared dream, every casual conversation becomes filtered through caution. She realized that relationships require more than love. They demand transparency, accountability, and the courage to share uncomfortable truths, even when it's hard. And yet, even in that difficult clarity, she discovered empowerment. She could step back, reflect, and recognize the warning signs before they caused irreversible harm. She could prioritize her own well-being while also learning what to expect from future relationships. The experience, though painful, became a guide, a reminder that deception, no matter how long it lasts, is always a red flag that can't be ignored. Finally, she faced the ultimate question. Could trust ever be rebuilt after nearly a year of deception, or was it better to walk away and protect her emotional health? She didn't have a simple answer, but one thing was clear. Transparency is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and without it, love alone isn't enough. In the end, the story isn't just about a boyfriend who lied. It's about the fragile nature of trust and the choices we make when it's broken. She learned that love alone isn't enough to sustain a relationship when honesty is absent. Months of deception, no matter how small they seem, have a way of eroding connection, confidence, and peace of mind. This experience became a wake-up call, not just for her, but for anyone watching. Trust is a foundation, and once cracks appear, they affect everything built on top of it: shared dreams, communication, and emotional safety. She realized that protecting herself meant confronting the truth, even when it was uncomfortable, and evaluating whether staying in the relationship aligned with her values and well-being. It's a reminder that transparency isn't negotiable. Being honest, even when the truth is inconvenient, embarrassing, or difficult, is a form of respect. Without it, relationships risk collapsing under the weight of hidden truths, frustration, and resentment. And sometimes, walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing to honor yourself and the standard you expect from the people you let into your life. So here's the question left hanging for anyone watching. If you discovered someone you loved had been hiding something significant for months, how would you respond? Would you forgive, confront, or walk away? The answer isn't simple, but the lesson is clear. Trust is priceless, and honesty is the first step in preserving it.